It all started so beautifully. 6 months ago, Sarah attended her art school reunion at a cozy cafe downtown. That's where she first saw Marcus, a distinguished-looking man with elegant silver streaks at his temples. Against the backdrop of her boisterous former classmates, he stood out as particularly sophisticated and captivating. The appearance of this stranger caused quite a stir among the women, and who could blame them? A successful art restorer with his own studio, impeccably dressed, carrying himself with a certain grace, displaying slightly old-fashioned courtesy, and, most importantly, wearing no wedding ring. You know, Jenny, Sarah was excited, warming her hands around a cup of tea while chatting with her friend. He noticed me right away. After the gathering, he came over and started asking about my work at the community center, about the art classes I teach, and he listened so intently, never taking his eyes off me. Their encounters began as if by chance, bumping into each other at the art gallery, crossing paths in the park. Marcus turned out to be a wonderful storyteller, with a subtle sense of humor. "Sarah, darling, you won't believe the amusing incident that happened at the studio today," he shared over dinner at a small restaurant. "My assistant mixed up the paints and started restoring an antique portrait with completely wrong colors. When I walked in, instead of a dignified elderly gentleman, there was this orange-faced clown that looked more like Santa Claus." Sarah laughed heartily, savoring his unique way of telling stories. Their relationship developed like something out of a romance novel. Marcus would call late in the evening. "Darling, I know it's late, but would you care to join me? There is a wonderful classical concert at the Symphony Hall tonight." And Sarah, forgetting all about her plans, would rush to meet him. She melted at his gallantry. He always let her go first, helped her with her coat, and presented her with beautiful bouquets. "Sarah, honey, something's not right here." Jenny shook her head thoughtfully. "It's all too perfect. Men like that are usually taken." "Oh, stop it. He can come over any time, day or night. Could a married man do that?" Indeed, Marcus seemed remarkably available. Spontaneous countryside drives, long walks, meetings, and day of the week, he surrounded Sarah with attention and care. And then, suddenly he vanished. What if something happened to him? Sarah kept asking, staring at her silent phone. What if he's sick or in the hospital? "Yeah, right. Maybe he finally remembered he's married." Jenny responded sarcastically, ever the realist. Just then, Sarah's phone rang, but instead of Marcus' velvet voice, she heard a sharp female scream. "Hello! Who is this? Identify yourself! Why are you calling my husband?" "Oh, I'm sorry, but who are you?" Sarah stammered, feeling her knees weaken. "I'm Marcus' lawful wife." The voice on the phone trembled with fury. "And I know exactly what you've been doing with him. Did you think I was too stupid to notice?" Sarah collapsed into an armchair. Only one thought pounded in her head. So Jenny was right. Married. He was married all this time. I didn't know," she whispered. I swear to you, he never—" "Oh, you didn't know." The woman's voice rose to a shriek. "What about your photos in his phone? How dare you send such shameless things? And the messages, 'My life, I miss you so much. Darling, when I will see you.' Oh, it's disgusting to read and even more disgusting to look at." The next day, Sarah's phone wouldn't stop ringing. Marcus' wife, who introduced herself as Anna, called non-stop from morning till night. She alternated between sobbing, threatening, and demanding explanations. It seemed endless. I knew something wasn't right. All those urgent restorations, unplanned exhibitions, and all along he was running to you." "Anna, please understand." Sarah tried to speak calmly, though her hands were shaking. "I really didn't know he was married, truly. He never wore a ring, never mentioned family." "Oh, of course he didn't." Anna laughed bitterly. "Why ruin the fairy tale? Do you know how many women there have been like you? You're neither the first nor the last." Those words cut deep into her heart. Not the first. Sarah remembered how Marcus has told her, "You're special, baby. I've never met a woman like you." And she had believed him like a complete fool. "Jenny, what should I do?" Sarah paced around her friend's apartment. "She's threatening to come to the community center, make a scene in front of everyone, show my colleagues the photos I sent to Marcus, got my reputation." "And what about Marcus?" Jenny efficiently brewed strong peppermint tea. "He has explained anything?" "Oh, the coward's silent." Sarah angrily threw her phone on the couch. "I've called and texted him. Nothing. Just those read receipts under my message." That night, a message came from Anne. "I'm sending your shameless photos to the director of the community center. Let everyone see what kind of cultured person you really are. We'll see how parents feel about sending their children to art classes with a homewrecker." "How dare she?" Jenny exploded after reading the threats. "This is harassment. We can take legal action. We need to do something." "Oh, what good will lawsuits do? After she shows up, I'll have to kiss my career goodbye." Sarah was on the verge of tears. She even changed her phone number, but it didn't help. Within a week, Anna had somehow gotten the new one too. "Thought you could hide?" she asked spitefully. "Not a chance. I'll ruin your life, just like you ruined my family. You'll learn your lesson." That day, Sarah went to the city clinic for blood tests. She hadn't been sleeping or eating properly for the past week, and Jenny had insisted on a checkup. The waiting room for the lab was stuffy, smelling of antiseptic, and an older nurse monotonously called out patients' names. Suddenly, the phone of a woman sitting in front of her rang. As she rummaged through her large purse, the contents of her makeup bag spilled onto the floor. Sarah instinctively bent down to help gather the scattered items. "Thank you, but I've got it." The woman looked up, and both froze. Sarah recognized the voice instantly, the same one that had been haunting her phone calls for weeks. Before her, crouching down, was Anna, the same furious woman who had been tormenting her with threats and curses. Only now she was a tired, gaunt woman with dark circles under her eyes and hands trembling from anxiety. I just wanted to help," Sarah mumbled, straightening up. They looked at each other. Two women deceived by the same man. Something like understanding flickered in Anna's eyes. "Sit down," she said unexpectedly calmly, patting the empty seat beside her. "Looks like neither of us is here for a common cold." They sat together, the mistress and the wife, victims of the same beautiful lie. "You know," Anna began slowly, choosing her words, I loved him so much. I probably still do." She continued, fidgeting with her purse strap. "Marcus and I met 15 years ago. He was just starting his studio then, barely making ends meet. I worked 2 jobs to help him get on his feet, cleaning office buildings at night, working as a bus inspector during the day, alternating shifts." Sarah listened silently. It was strange to see how the threatening avenger was transforming into an ordinary, exhausted woman with a difficult working-class life. "Our son was born when his business finally took off. Marcus was over the moon, treated me like a queen," Anna smiled bitterly. "But then came the everyday struggles, sleepless nights, bills. Of course we argued. That's when these endless urgent orders and important meetings started. I knew what was happening, but I kept quiet. Hoped he'd get over it, come to his senses. I was more focused on our child at the time." And and how long have you known about us, I mean?" Sarah asked quietly. "About you? A month ago. Accidentally saw a message on his phone." Their conversation was interrupted by the nurse calling Anna into the exam room. When she returned, she held a crumpled paper with the results in her hands. "Sarah," she said unexpectedly, "would you like to get coffee? There is a decent place around the corner." They talked for 2 hours in the half-empty coffee shop. Anne spoke about her life with Marcus, about his gradual emotional withdrawal, about her suspicions and fears. Sarah shared her story, how they met, how she believed in his freedom and sincerity. "You know what's the worst part?" Anna suddenly said. "I checked his email yesterday. He has a folder called Work, with subfolders of women's names, each one full of those horrible photos, messages, dozens of women over the last 5 years. He's just sick and hopeless." Sarah felt nausea rising in her throat. "It's like a hobby for him, you see." Anna spoke quietly, but there was steel in her voice. "He courts them beautifully, charms them, gets what he wants, and then disappears, vanishes. Very convenient in a big city. And they're all so different, young college students. Other men's wives. How can people be so twisted?" "But why didn't you leave?" Sarah asked carefully. "Because of my son. And also, I was afraid I couldn't manage alone. But now I'm definitely leaving. You know why I was at the clinic. I'm pregnant, can you believe it?" Sarah stared at her companion, stunned. "Does he know?" "No, and I'm not telling him yet," Anna replied firmly. "I've already rented an apartment, preparing divorce papers. You can teach an old dog new tricks. Enough is enough." A week later, Sarah spotted Marcus at the mall. He wasn't alone. A young woman was chirping beside him, gazing up at him adoringly. He was gesturing animatedly in his characteristic way, clearly deep into one of his stories. Sarah pulled out her phone and typed a message to Anne. "Your husband at Westfield Mall, 3rd floor. He is not alone. Looks like the scenario repeating. Want me to send a photo?" The response came instantly. "Thanks, but no need. I don't care anymore. I've got other things on my mind. Found an apartment in another state. Moving in a month. Let the snake do what he wants." Sarah put away her phone and walked towards the exit without looking back. Her heart felt oddly peaceful and sad at the same time. 2 months later, she ran into Jenny, who had just returned from vacation. "Heard the news?" her friend asked. "Your precious Marcus was sent to the emergency yesterday. Apparently some husband caught him with his wife and threw him down a flight of stairs. And rumor has he has problems in his studio. Someone anonymously sent documentation about unreported income. Seems like karma finally catching up." Sarah just shrugged. She'd long stopped following news about her former lover. She had a different life now, peaceful, honest, without pretense or hidden meanings. Just before New Year's, Sarah received a strange card with no return address. Inside was a child's drawing, 2 small figures holding hands, with a note. "My son started drawing. They say he has talent like his father, but his eyes are kind and honest, completely different. Thank you for helping me see the truth that day. We're truly happy now." Sarah looked at the card for a long time, then carefully placed it in an old jewelry box where she kept her most treasured possessions: her student's drawing, a yellowed photograph of her parents, and a dried lily, the first flower Marcus had ever given her.